Have you ever had one of those uncanny moments that seem too exact, too perfectly timed, to be explained away as random? You think of a childhood friend you haven't spoken to in years, and before you can shake the thought, your phone vibrates with a message from them. You glance at a clock and it reads 11. Then hours later the receipt from your lunch bill ends in the same repeating number, and that night a license plate flashes the same digits again. After a while, it no longer feels like chance. It begins to feel like something or someone is orchestrating events behind the curtain of reality, nudging your attention, whispering through patterns, weaving connections that logic struggles to explain. These are the moments often described as synchronicities. To the skeptical mind, they are dismissed as statistical probability, nothing more than the brain's tendency to notice patterns. But deep inside, most people feel there is something heavier, something meaningful in these alignments, as though life itself is communicating in a secret language. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, gave a name to this phenomenon. He called it meaningful coincidence, a term that acknowledges the strange intersection of external events with the inner world of thoughts, emotions, and desires. Jung admitted, even he couldn't fully explain why or how these moments occurred. He understood that synchronicity seemed to defy the rules of ordinary cause and effect. Two events with no direct connection somehow collided in a way that carried a sense of purpose, a sense of divine timing. To a logical framework rooted in Newtonian science, this was impossible, yet to human experience, it felt undeniable. The mystery of synchronicity, then, has always lived in the space between skepticism and wonder, between scientific dismissal and spiritual recognition. Science, for centuries, tried to brush aside such experiences, relegating them to coincidence or imagination. Yet modern physics has begun to open the door to explanations that align surprisingly well with what Jung intuited decades ago. In the quantum world, reality doesn't unfold as a rigid chain of causes and effects. It doesn't move in neat linear steps like falling dominoes. Instead, reality exists as a field of infinite possibilities, a shimmering haze of potential states waiting to be observed, waiting for consciousness to interact with them. In that vast field, everything is connected. Time, space, and distance lose their grip. Possibilities overlap, interact, and entangle in ways that ordinary perception cannot grasp. When a synchronicity occurs, it may not be the result of blind chance but of resonance, the vibration of your inner state aligning with a possibility already present in the quantum field. Imagine it like previews of a movie, leaking into your awareness before the full film plays. These synchronicities are the shadows of realities not yet fully materialized. A shadow does not exist without an object casting it. In the same way, a synchronicity hints at a timeline that is already forming, already gathering momentum in the unseen, waiting for you to step into it. To dismiss it is to ignore the message. To obsess over it is to distort the meaning. The true invitation is to pause and notice, to recognize that reality is far more mysterious, responsive and alive than you were ever taught to believe. And in that recognition, a doorway opens to a deeper understanding of yourself and the universe you inhabit. When you begin to look at synchronicities through the lens of shadows, the entire phenomenon takes on a new dimension. A shadow is never the object itself, but a reflection, a projection cast by something more solid and real. In the same way, synchronicities can be understood not as the full manifestation of reality, but as silhouettes of what is forming beyond the veil of perception. They are like echoes of a future possibility, reverberating into the present moment, hinting at what is coming but not yet fully anchored. This perspective removes the pressure of needing to assign absolute meaning to every sign that crosses your path. Instead of chasing each coincidence as though it were the destination itself, you begin to see it as a preview, an invitation to pay attention to the deeper energy that is shaping your reality. The quantum field, described by physicists as an infinite sea of probabilities, is where these echoes originate. In that space, countless versions of reality exist simultaneously, each waiting to be collapsed into experience by the focus of attention and the coherence of emotion. When your inner state resonates with one of those possibilities, the field responds, sending ripples of alignment into your lived experience. A synchronicity is one of those ripples, a reminder that your vibration has brushed against a potential future. This is why people often notice them when they are on the cusp of major life shifts or when they are intensely focused on a desire. The signs are not random. They are indicators of resonance, of a matching frequency between your internal state and the external reality you are beginning to attract. But this understanding also carries a caution. A shadow can mislead if you mistake it for the object itself. In the same way, synchronicities can create confusion if you cling to them as though they guarantee a specific outcome. Seeing repeating numbers, hearing a phrase multiple times in 1 week, or encountering symbolic animals on your path may not mean that your manifestation has already arrived. Instead, they indicate that you are brushing against alignment, that you are entering the gravitational pull of a timeline that could become yours if you continue to nurture the state that attracted it in the first place. Misinterpreting synchronicities as finished products rather than previews can lead to disappointment, because you begin expecting the shadow to behave like the object, forgetting that the shadow only hints at its form. To walk with synchronicities wisely is to treat them as guides rather than idols. They are like compass points in a wilderness, directing your attention toward the path, but not walking it for you. They affirm that your inner coherence is being registered in the larger fabric of reality. They remind you that your thoughts, emotions, and energy are not isolated in your mind but ripple outward into the field that gives birth to circumstances. And most importantly, they reveal that reality is layered, that what you see with your eyes is only the surface, while below it, threads of meaning and resonance weave themselves together in ways that logic alone cannot measure. The question of how synchronicity works has always fascinated both mystics and scientists, though each approaches it from a different angle. From the scientific perspective, the brain plays a central role in how we perceive these so-called coincidences. Neuroscience tells us that the human brain is not simply a passive receiver of reality, but an active prediction machine. Every moment, it filters vast amounts of sensory data, discarding what seems irrelevant and highlighting what connects to your beliefs, emotions, or focus. If you have ever decided to buy a new car and suddenly see that same model everywhere, it is not that the cars appeared out of nowhere. It is that your brain, primed by intention, is now filtering reality to bring that pattern to your attention. In this sense, synchronicity can be explained as your mind aligning its perception to match what you are already thinking or feeling. But this explanation alone doesn't fully account for the uncanny timing, the sense of profound meaning, or the improbability of some coincidences. This is where the frontier of quantum physics offers a wider lens, unlike classical physics, which describes the universe as a chain of predictable causes and effects. Quantum mechanics reveals a world of probabilities. At the quantum level, particles exist in multiple states at once until observed, a principle known as superposition. When an observer interacts with the system, the wave of possibilities collapses into one actual outcome. This suggests that reality is not fixed but responsive, shaped in part by consciousness itself. Entanglement, another strange feature of quantum physics, shows that two particles can become connected in such a way that changing one instantly influences the other, no matter the distance. This defies the logic of space and time, and hints at an underlying unity of all things. When we apply these principles to synchronicity, it becomes easier to imagine how an inner thought and an outer event might align with improbable precision. It is less about chance and more about resonance, the interaction of consciousness with the field of probabilities. The role of attention becomes crucial here. What you consistently focus on, whether consciously or unconsciously, influences how probability waves collapse. The stronger the emotion attached to a thought, the more powerful the resonance it creates in the field. Neuroscientists confirm that emotional intensity imprints neural pathways more deeply, while spiritual traditions have long taught that heartfelt intention shapes destiny. This overlap between science and spirituality reveals synchronicity as both a psychological and energetic phenomenon. On one hand, your brain filters the world according to your focus, drawing your awareness to patterns that match your state of mind. On the other, your state of consciousness interacts with the quantum field, influencing which of the infinite possibilities crystallizes into your experience. This dual mechanism explains why synchronicities often feel charged with meaning. It is not only that your brain notices the event, but also that the event resonates with a deeper coherence between your inner world and the external environment. The moment becomes luminous because it reflects the dialogue between mind, matter, and the field that connects them. To reduce synchronicity to coincidence is to ignore this mysterious interplay, while to inflate it into superstition is to misunderstand its function. Seen through the lens of both neuroscience and quantum science, synchronicity is the meeting point where consciousness and reality dance together, each shaping and reflecting the other. When we step away from the scientific framework and explore synchronicity through a spiritual lens, the phenomenon takes on an entirely different quality. It is no longer about chance, probability, or perception alone, but about meaning. Carl Jung emphasized that the true essence of synchronicity is not in its improbability, but in its significance. Two unrelated events converge, and suddenly the connection feels personal, intimate, even sacred. Meaning becomes the bridge between the inner world of thought and the outer world of matter. From this perspective, synchronicities are not mechanical outputs, but symbolic messages, invitations to align more deeply with the flow of life. They are mirrors of the soul, reflecting back to you the state of your consciousness. In spiritual traditions across the world, coherence has always been seen as the key to manifestation. When thoughts, emotions, and body are scattered, the signals you send into the universe are fragmented. The field does not know which frequency to respond to because you are vibrating in multiple directions at once. But when your mind, heart, and body move in harmony, you create a unified vibration. This coherence acts like a tuning fork, resonating with possibilities in the unseen and drawing them into form. Synchronicities arise as confirmation of this resonance. They tell you that you are not merely drifting but moving in rhythm with something larger, something intelligent and responsive. Spiritual teachers often describe the universe as a mirror. It does not judge or punish, but simply reflects the energy you project. If you are steeped in fear, chaos, or doubt, your reality will reflect those states back to you. If you embody love, clarity, and trust, the mirror shifts accordingly. Synchronicities function as feedback signals within this mirror. They do not exist to dictate your path, but to affirm that your vibration has been registered. They are like the universe nodding in acknowledgement, saying, "Yes, I hear you, I feel you, keep going." This is why they so often appear during moments of prayer, meditation, or deep intention. The silence of inner alignment makes it easier for the outer world to respond in symbols and signs. But the meaning is not fixed in the sign itself. It arises in the dialogue between you and the universe. A feather landing at your feet might mean nothing to one person but carry deep reassurance to another, who asked for a sign of protection. Numbers repeating on a clock may seem trivial to some, yet to someone actively manifesting, they confirm a sense of divine order. The signs adapt to the seeker because the language of synchronicity is symbolic, not literal. It speaks through resonance, not prescription. It is less about predicting the future and more about affirming your state of being in the present. In this way, synchronicity teaches responsibility. It reminds you that the universe is not an external force tossing random signs your way, but an interactive field responding to your coherence. To live with awareness of synchronicity is to live with awareness of your own vibration. Each sign becomes a whisper, not of destiny written in stone, but of the ongoing dance between your inner alignment and the greater intelligence that shapes reality. There comes a point on the journey with synchronicity when the signs that once seemed abundant suddenly fade. The repeating numbers that once appeared daily stop showing up. The encounters that felt guided no longer occur with the same precision. At first, this silence can feel unsettling, even discouraging, as though you have lost the connection or drifted off your path. But the absence of synchronicity carries its own wisdom, a deeper rhythm often overlooked. The silence is not abandonment but recalibration, the quiet space before a new alignment is fully formed. Just as the tide pulls back before a great wave surges forward, the withdrawal of signs often precedes a breakthrough or a shift into a higher state of coherence. From the perspective of quantum possibility, silence is the haze of probability before reality collapses into form. When you are in transition, when your inner state is evolving but not yet settled, the field reflects that ambiguity. The signals become muted because the resonance is still fluctuating. The reality that is forming has not yet stabilized enough to cast its shadow in the form of synchronicities. This period can feel like walking through fog. You know you are moving, but you cannot yet see where you are heading. The temptation is to panic, to grasp for meaning, to chase after signs in desperation. But in truth, the silence is a necessary phase, the gap that allows the new vibration to anchor fully before revealing itself outwardly. Neuroscience offers another perspective on this gap. The brain is constantly updating its internal models of the world through a process known as predictive coding. When your focus or beliefs shift, the brain must rewire itself to accommodate the new pattern. During this rewiring, the heightened noticing of synchronicities may lessen because your attention is no longer locked onto the old signals, but has not yet fully attuned to the new ones. It is the in-between state, the psychological equivalent of being in transit between two realities. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve into formlessness inside the chrysalis before emerging as a butterfly, the mind passes through silence as it reorganizes around a new state of being. From the spiritual perspective, this silence is sacred. It is the threshold moment before manifestation, the pause before the music resumes, the quiet breath before creation speaks again. Many traditions emphasize that God or the universe often works most powerfully in silence, because silence creates space for trust. When synchronicities stop, the deeper lesson is to release dependency on external confirmation and cultivate faith in the unseen process. It is easy to believe when the signs are loud and constant, but transformation deepens when you can still believe in their absence. This silence teaches you to embody the vibration itself, not for the reward of signs, but because it has become your truth. In this way, the quiet between synchronicities is not a void but an initiation, a subtle training that strengthens your alignment and prepares you for the reality that is about to unfold. There comes a moment when the seeker must shift from asking for signs to becoming the sign. As long as you depend on external synchronicities to confirm your path, you remain in a state of waiting, always looking for permission from the outside world. But the deeper invitation of synchronicity is to awaken you to your own creative authority. Instead of scanning the environment for patterns, you begin to radiate such coherence within yourself that the environment naturally organizes around your state of being. You stop chasing alignment because you embody it. You no longer beg reality to show you breadcrumbs because you become the bread maker, generating the energy that draws the external world into harmony. This shift begins with self-awareness. When you notice how your inner world consistently shapes your outer experience, you realize the true source of synchronicity has never been outside you. The repeating numbers, the chance encounters, the uncanny timing were mirrors pointing back to your vibration. The universe was reflecting what you already carried within, reminding you of your influence over the field of possibility. To become the signal is to take ownership of that influence, to recognize that your thoughts, emotions, and actions broadcast frequencies that reality responds to. This recognition is both liberating and demanding. It frees you from passivity, but it also calls you to live with intention and integrity, because the energy you radiate is no longer hidden. Mystics and modern teachers alike describe this state as coherence. Neville Goddard spoke of living in the end, a practice of embodying the feeling of your desired reality as though it were already true. Dr. Joe Dispenza demonstrates through neuroscience how the heart and brain can be trained into coherence, producing measurable electromagnetic fields that extend beyond the body. Both teachings converge on the same truth. When you sustain inner coherence, the outer world cannot help but rearrange itself to mirror it. This is why synchronicities appear so often in the beginning. They are reminders of the link between your state and your experience. But as you mature in awareness, the signs become less necessary because you are no longer waiting for feedback. You live as the source. Becoming the signal also transforms your relationship with time. When you live in lack or uncertainty, you are constantly checking the horizon, wondering when your desire will arrive. But when you embody the reality within, time bends around your coherence. You no longer measure progress by external events, but by the stability of your state. Paradoxically, this very stability accelerates manifestation, because the field responds more quickly to unwavering frequencies. Life begins to feel less like a guessing game and more like a dance, where your vibration leads and circumstances follow. This stage of the journey is not about discarding synchronicities, but about transcending dependence on them. They still appear, but now they are confirmations of a truth you already live, rather than reassurances you desperately seek. You move from being a seeker of signs to being a generator of alignment, from waiting for proof to embodying certainty. In this state, you are no longer interpreting reality, you are broadcasting it. Synchronicity can be seen as a bridge, but it is not the final destination. In the early stages, it functions as training wheels for the soul, gentle nudges, reminding you that you are connected to something greater, that your inner world and outer world are not separate but deeply intertwined. These signs are necessary at first because they break through the rigid surface of logical conditioning, opening you to the possibility that reality is alive, responsive, and participatory. But just as a child eventually outgrows the need for training wheels, so too does the awakened individual outgrow dependence on signs. The ultimate purpose of synchronicity is not to keep you searching for numbers on clocks or hidden messages in random events, but to usher you into a state where alignment becomes natural, continuous, and embodied. At this stage, synchronicity shifts from being an occasional spark to becoming the rhythm of daily life. The more coherent your state, the less you experience synchronicity as isolated anomalies, and the more it feels like your entire reality flows in harmony. Life organizes itself around your vibration, not in spectacular bursts, but in steady patterns of ease, alignment, and grace. The right opportunities arrive without struggle, conversations unfold at just the right moment, and paths open before you with minimal resistance. What once felt miraculous now feels ordinary because you have integrated the principle of resonance into the core of your being. You are no longer waiting for extraordinary signs. You are living in continuous dialogue with the intelligence of reality. This embodiment also changes how you see yourself. You stop perceiving life as something happening to you and recognize yourself as a participant in its unfolding. You are not the passive observer of a mysterious universe dropping clues at random. You are the projector, the source of the images that reality reflects back to you. Your vibration becomes the film, and life is the screen on which it plays. This realization carries immense power but also immense responsibility. It means that every thought, every emotion, every state of being is creative. It forces you to take accountability for the energy you carry, because that energy shapes the patterns you encounter. The key to sustaining this state is coherence. It is not enough to think positively for a few moments or meditate once in a while. Embodiment requires consistency, a practice of aligning mind, heart, and body so deeply that it becomes second nature. When you reach this point, synchronicity no longer feels like something external to chase, but as a natural extension of who you are. It is the overflow of inner harmony manifesting outward. The more stable you are in coherence, the more effortlessly life mirrors it back. Instead of occasional signs, your entire reality becomes a living synchronicity, an ongoing affirmation of your alignment with the deeper intelligence that underlies existence. There is a stage in the journey where synchronicity evolves from being an external event you notice into an internal declaration you live. At this stage, you are no longer waiting for repeating numbers to appear or for chance encounters to confirm your path. You rise into the awareness that you are the creative force shaping the rhythm of your reality. The words you speak, the thoughts you sustain, and the emotions you embody become signals that the universe cannot ignore. To declare "I am the signal" is to acknowledge your role as a conscious co-creator, no longer dependent on breadcrumbs of validation but rooted in the knowing that life must respond to the vibration you broadcast. It is a turning point from seeking evidence of connection to embodying connection itself. This declaration changes the way you perceive reality. Instead of scanning your environment for confirmation, you radiate certainty. Instead of wondering whether you are aligned, you live as alignment. This shift is subtle yet powerful because it reclaims authority from the outside world and plants it firmly within. You stop treating reality as something that happens outside of you and begin to experience it as something generated through you. The mirror of life reflects what you are, not what you wish for. When you hold the state of being with unwavering clarity, synchronicities arise naturally, not as rare events, but as inevitable consequences of coherence. Living from this declaration also transforms your relationship with desire. Instead of craving signs that your manifestations are on their way, you embody the end state now. You speak as though it is done. You feel as though it is here. You walk with the energy of completion, and in doing so you collapse the distance between longing and arrival. This is the essence of what teachers like Neville Goddard described when he urged people to live in the end. The power lies not in waiting for evidence, but in becoming the evidence. When you inhabit the vibration of fulfillment, the external world must reorganize to mirror that state. To say, "I am the signal," is also to recognize that reality is participatory. You are not just a receiver but a broadcaster. Your frequency shapes the patterns that unfold around you. Your coherence stabilizes the field of possibilities, pulling certain outcomes into form. This does not mean you control every detail of life, but it does mean that you influence the quality of what life reflects back. A chaotic mind projects chaos. A coherent heart projects harmony. The more deeply you embody alignment, the more naturally synchronicities flow, not as reassurance but as overflow. The final step of this evolution is surrender. When you embody the signal, you no longer obsess about outcomes or demand constant signs. You trust the vibration you carry. You know that the field cannot resist coherence, that reality must mirror the state you inhabit. In this surrender, synchronicity becomes less about searching for proof and more about living in rhythm with the intelligence of creation itself. You are no longer chasing the whispers of alignment. You are the voice that speaks them into existence.